Resume. Hi, Jesse.
Hello.
I like when we see cool. What's happening? Look at your cool ass glasses, girl. Get all styling.
Got some pretty good ones there too, I gotta say.
I know. Well, you know, I have to. The fact that I have to wear the darn suckers now, I can't see a darn thing without them. Okay.
Ah, there it is.
Events page. I'm trying to send one to Kelly. Kelly. Okay, this event's about to start. Oh, there it is. Kelly Kenyon. There we go. Hi, Thomas.
Hello, how are you?
Fabulous. Hi, Alice.
Hi, Edit.
Hi,
Hi, Thomas.
Silly. Love this. Since everybody looks so smiling.
Hello.
Look at this. 30 people already. Like, bam. This is just as exciting as can be. T-class. Who's T-class? No picture. That's not fair. I love seeing lots of, hi, what's happening? Mr. Cook, we can see your beautiful face.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah. Just keep on letting a few more people come before we start yammering. Well, I do the yammering. This is so awesome. Look at all these awesome people. Mary and Jeff Will. Hey, Jeff Wilkie. Allie Gorley. Look at that. Cindy Rogers and Tess. Hey, Tess and Jessica. Catherine, Alice, Lisa's phone. Brooke. B. Hill. Michelle Goodson, LM, Jesse, Gianni, Thomas, David, Michelle, Andrea, Corina, Carol, Melissa, Mackenzie, Tony, look at that. Fred, Mark, look at all these amazing gentlemen that have joined us today. Tom McCauley, Jennifer Colbert. I love this. Thank you, boys, for coming.
Good to be here.
I know, I love it. We're literally at 10:02 and we have 42 people. Yay!
That's pretty good attendance.
It's awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I'm going to get started a little bit, just do a little bit of introduction about women in exhibition. Since there's so many new people on here, it'd be nice to kind of give everybody an update of who we are and what we're doing and why we have this amazing speaker series, and to invite people like Lisa to share a little bit about their personal and professional journey. So for those of you who are new, Women in Exhibition is a 501c3. We started in 2019, right before the pandemic, is when we got our 501c3 status. And one of the things that was scaring us was we were going to meet at CinemaCon and it didn't happen due to COVID. So we decided to organize a gathering virtually, and we did it as a happy hour. And we invited an interesting person to join us. And it kind of set the stage for this kind of speaker format where we invite somebody interesting to talk to our group. And the Zoom style that we do is kind of unique. Most other webinars are like panelists and then a moderator, and everyone else is in the audience that are secret and behind. Or podcast is one person interviewing and it's interviewing one speaker. We like to interview somebody, get a little bit of their background history, whatever they're willing to share. And Lisa is going to share some interesting stuff with us. And then we open it up to the Zoom audience so they can ask a question. They can simply say hi, they can wave, they can tell us a little bit about their company in case they want to do a little, hey, this is who we are. And then I move throughout the room and let as many people say hi as we can. Our group was formed to kind of shine a spotlight, give a little education and support for women in exhibition. And by exhibition, we mean the cinema exhibitors, the studios, distribution companies, filmmakers, and then all the support vendors who supply everything from software to concessions to seating to screens, everything in between in our support group. So a provider of service, product, or solutions. And we kind of leave this open for anyone to participate. We have really low entry fee to be a member, so that kind of encourages people that want to just give us a little shot. And then we have interesting programs like our panel parity, and that's to help people that are putting on conferences that want a diverse group of speakers. They say, reach out to us. We've got amazing women who you may not know of, and they have a great insight. So we invite show producers to reach out to us, and we reach out to them. We have a phenomenal mentorship program where mentees tell us of where they'd like to go in their professional journey, and we match them with mentors. So we're going into our second year, and we have, I think, 15 of each this year, 14 or 15, phenomenal people. We will be creating a scholarship program for people that want to attend the CinemaCons and the Show East and the Cine Europes or whatever and can't afford to go. So we'll be working on trying to bring together some sponsor dollars to help people attend these conferences, summits, and mixers. And then, there's a few other things we have in the works, but these are the core essentials of what we're doing. And then we have an events committee. So hopefully at most of these conferences, there will be a WIE meet where we just get together, no host bar, and we just have a little social gathering, usually before a bigger event. So without further ado, everyone, oh my God, I'm so excited. So we have Lisa Bunnell. She's with Focus Features. And I saw Lisa accept an award at Show East. And y'all, I fell in love with this woman.
SL01. SL100 for the meter, and then SL01.
Let's see who's next.
Talk.
Y'all mute your phones. So when I reached out to Lisa, I said, she told a very compelling, a very open story about herself, and it really touched me. So I thought she'd be a super person to interview, and she's got, of course, a very diverse background within our industry. So Lisa, as I walk through this and ask you some questions, I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit about who Lisa is, and we'll get to what you do. But I think the who you are is so beautiful and so impactful. So take us on a little journey about who Lisa is when you walk in a room. What do you want someone to know about you?
Well, I think that for me, I had a rough time as a kid, and I grew up in New Jersey. I'm a Jersey girl.
All right.
Folks from Jersey are nothing like the Jersey Shore or anything like that. They're cool people. I hate the fact that there's sort of a stigma on people from Jersey, but I grew up there, and I could see Manhattan from my house. So I always wanted to be in New York. But I was a very painfully shy kid, as teachers would say. I used to bring my Winnie the Pooh to school. So I was always sort of frightened and afraid, and I didn't talk. People used to say, Lisa's just very quiet, and I was very silent. So as I grew up, I kind of got bullied a lot in school, and I was bullied before being bullied was like a thing. Nobody really knew. Nobody knew what to do with me, and I was a smart kid, and I was a sweet kid, but I was bullied, and it was really hard. So it actually helped me in a lot of ways, because as I grew up, I had to develop. You either go one way or the other, and for me, I had to sort of develop a tough shell on myself and just be comfortable in my own skin and know that however other people felt about me was there and not mine. And so it was a good education for me, especially being in the movie industry, which is not easy. But it was a great education for me to sort of gain sort of some strength and sort of some strength in who I was. And for me, music actually saved my life. And so I really feel, music for me, and I was a big reader. I still am. I love movies, but music was really what saved me in a lot of ways. And so I kind of just developed my own sort of, in some ways, my own sort of persona. I was a huge fan of the Police and Sting. And when I was 11 years old, much to my mother's horror, I started coloring my hair. It's the same color to this day. I don't even know what my real hair color is anymore. And fine, it's just who I am. And I really got into the punk movement, and then I got into U2, and U2 was sort of the reason why I got into the film industry. I went to FIT. I actually originally wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to be a sports journalist before being a sports journalist was a thing. And I was told that women couldn't really do that. And so I kind of gotten into the fashion industry. I went to FIT, and
that was one of my questions. Okay.
Yeah, I went there to become a buyer. I wanted to be a buyer in the store. I was managing a junior department in Bloomingdale's and one in Macy's. I did 2 different runs doing that. And I went to go into management. I graduated with honors, and I was the assistant to the head of the fashion department. I always sort of worked harder to sort of prove to people that I didn't people kind of look at you and they go, oh, she's like a punk, because my hair was like this high and my skirts were like that short. And
Oh, wow. I'd love to see one of those pictures there.
oh yeah, I look like something out of a Guns N' Roses video, but it was kind of, it was hard. So I always worked harder because of that. And when I finally got out of FIT and I had all these recommendations to go into the management programs, I was turned away because of what I look like, and it really hurt me a lot. And it gave me time to reflect. So in my time of reflection, I decided that the most important thing I could do was go see U2's movie, U2 Rattle and Hum, and I wanted to go to the premiere, and I wanted to be with the band. That was like my goal. And so I took a job at Lowe's Theaters as an administrator to basically go to the premiere of U2 Rattle and Hum, which was at the Astor Plaza. And then I was going to quit and try to go back into retail. Well, I was lucky enough to work with a group of people at Lowe's, and I got to work with Frank Patterson. I got to work with Bernie Meyerson. He's a legend. I got to work with Richie Fay, and I
Richie Fay.
Yeah, I love Richie. And I worked with a lot of people in the industry who really helped me sort of on my way. And it wasn't an easy journey, but my start started in exhibition at Lowe's.
Yeah.
And Lowe's was my family. And to this day, if I start talking about it too much, I'll cry, because they were my family.
Yeah.
So that's where I grew up, and I wouldn't be here without them. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But I was young when I got into the industry, and I was stupid, and I always worked hard, but I also drank hard, and I also did a lot of drugs, and I did a lot of things that, I'm glad I got out of my system. I like to tell people now that I drank enough when I was younger that I don't need to drink anything now.
Yeah.
But I worked my way into the booking department as a film buyer. And eventually, the alcohol sort of took over my life. And I was lucky enough that I worked with Travis Reed, and I went to Travis, had a problem. And Travis got me into rehab, and Lowe's took care of me. And because
Did they have a program there?
it was through the insurance company. I actually went to Sierra Tucson, which was at the time was sort of the rehab of choice for a lot of people. And I went through a 28-day program when I was there.
Yes.
And I've been clean ever since. So, it was one of those things where I felt like, for the first time, somebody really had a tremendous amount of confidence in me and cared about me enough to kind of get me through that. So I always felt like I would never do anything to sort of, betray that trust.
Yes.
And I always remember when I came back to Lowe's after that period, Travis looked at me and said, "Are you better?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm all good." And the thing that he did for me is he gave me more work, and he promoted me because he had that much confidence in me. And that helped me, because he wasn't like on eggshells with me, like, "Is she going to be okay?" He's like, "I know you're okay." And that helped me tremendously. And and that's why to this day, if Travis asks me to do something, I'm there in 2 seconds. And I stayed at Lowe's throughout Lowe's whole reign. When an AMC bought us out, we were, I lost my job, and I wound up working at Landmark Theaters for 10 years with Ted Mundorf and Mike McClellan.
Yes.
Great group of people. And Ted, I love Ted, and I still talk to Ted all the time. And that was a family situation too for me, where I was really close to a lot of the people there, and I was lucky enough to become head film buyer there eventually when Mike retired. And I loved that experience. And we got to open up a lot of really great theaters, including the Landmark in LA, which is unfortunately closed now, but it was a big deal, and I learned a tremendous amount there. And eventually, Jim Moore talked to Ted and asked if he could talk to me about coming to Focus. And I think Focus is probably the only job I would have left Landmark for.
Gotcha.
And Ted thought it was a great opportunity for me. And so
switch to the dark side.
Switch to the dark side. Well, it depends. Each side has its darkness. It's just which one at that time.
Yeah.
And so then I went over to Focus Features, and I've been the president of distribution for Focus Features for almost 7 years now. And it's a really, for me, it's really been a tremendous opportunity to work with filmmakers and, work with a great group of people, trying to get movies back into theaters. It's been challenging during COVID, and it's particularly challenging for art and specialty film post-COVID at this point.
Yes.
So it's a challenging job, but I really love it. So That's me in a nutshell right there.
I love it. So that gives me a couple of questions that I want to ask. What would you say to your younger self? What would you say to your 16-year-old self?
I think I would tell myself that it was going to be okay, because I didn't think it was. I was one of those people who really, when I was younger, it was daunting. The idea of being an adult, and kind of taking care of myself was daunting. And, I was like the misfit of all misfits. I always identified with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and I used to kid around that I lived on the island.
Get that.
That was me. So for anybody to think that from my mother, if you ask my mother, like what she worried about, my mother always thought that I would, like, unfortunately die before I was 27 years old in some horrible way. So the fact that I survived and that I lived and I moved on, for me, I think I would tell my 16-year-old self is not to, just let things be somewhat, and it'll be okay. You don't have to overthink it.
That's awesome. So usually I like to know what somebody's biggest accomplishments and biggest regrets. So let's go for regrets first, and then let's go for accomplishments. What's your biggest regret?
I think probably for me, I don't have a ton of regrets. I think that's a good thing. I don't. I don't. I think that probably the only regrets that I have in my career have been that sometimes I haven't moved out of positions fast enough, that I didn't take chances. I'm not one of those people. Some people will flip from job to job or try for different things.
Yes.
I think times in my career where I could have tried to do something and I didn't do it just because that's who I was. And and interestingly enough, I think it was Travis, I believe, at that at the event that you're talking about in Show East, who said that, and it's true. It's like I was always loyal to Lowe's and I would never leave. And most people wouldn't do that. I was offered a lot more money. I was offered a lot other opportunities that I just never would do them. I think that if I was looking back on some of those things, I probably would have went into them with a little bit of a different mindset, because I really believe Lowe's would last forever and I would never have to leave or go anywhere else. That was really my mindset, sort of immature.
Okay, so biggest accomplishment.
My son.
Awesome.
That's,
So what's your relationship like with him? There's a
my-
lot of moms on here, by the way. I'm looking at a bunch of them. They're going to go, yay.
He's 21, and he's doing well. He's back here. He went to school in Seattle for a while, got caught in the sort of COVID deal, and now he's going to school here in LA. So he's here with me, and he's doing really well. He's a really sweet kid, wants nothing to do with the film industry, but he's very musically talented, and he does a lot of other things on his own, and I'm very proud of him. So he, of everything in my life, that's, the first thing that comes up for me is my son.
I love it. Okay, so we talked a little bit about, you have some charity work that you're involved with. Share a little bit about your passions with your charities that you support.
Well, there's a lot of charities that I do in the industry, but my biggest, not biggest, but the thing that's in my heart the most are animals and dogs. And I work with a Cocker Spaniel rescue because I had spaniels, and they're like the spaniels are sort of the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer of dogs. They belong on the island of misfit toys because they are constantly sick, have all kinds of problems, and they need a lot of help. So I work with a charity called Camp Cocker, and I also work with a bunch of other animal charities and shelters. And we just adopted a husky. His name is Axel, and he was on the list, unfortunately, in a shelter to go away forever. Yep. And we saved him, and he is the happiest dog in the entire world. And it's such a rewarding experience to be able to save an animal. So that's something that's near and dear to my heart. Of course, Variety in Southern California, who I love Variety. My best friend is Elizabeth O'Neill, and Elizabeth was the head of Variety, director of Variety for years. And so I have always been amazed with the work that they do. I'm amazed with the people who work with them. And Elizabeth has always amazed me because she can do things like she can go in and help. I'm like in tears, but she can do it. And, I always supported her from the outside, not on the inside, because I became a big ball of tears. But I think that they do amazing work, and it's charity that I support. And my husband, Steve, is now the president of Variety, near and dear to my heart. And I'm on the board of Will Rogers, and Will Rogers is something I really do think the industry needs sort of a re-education on Rogers, because Will Rogers does a lot They do a lot for children. A lot, they have their, they deal with preemie children, and they have a whole program for them. But they also do a lot of work in the industry. And I don't think a lot of people realize that they have helped so many people in our industry. I know people who, like when the New York offices closed and everybody got laid off, that all those people, many of whom had 30 years of experience, couldn't get jobs. Will Rogers is somebody who helps put food on the table for people who are in our industry who need help and medical help and it's a real thing, and it's something that's very, very important. So I'm proud of the work that I get to do with Will Rogers. But also I think that, in your jobs, and this will happen sort of in your daily life, whether you're in exhibition or distribution, there are so many things that will come up. People will ask you for help. And sometimes, I used to work with, when I was at Lowe's, and I used to book a theater called the Stroud Mall. And every year they had camps for kids with cancer that they would ask me to help them get screenings, and it meant so much to these kids. And I would do this every year for them. And sometimes you don't realize it's the little things that mean a lot. And I think that that's something that you have to continue to do throughout your career, because things will come up. And I'm very happy that, like, at my level now, we just had a movie called Champions where Woody Harrelson is in this movie. And plays a coach who basically gets in trouble with the law. And what he has to do is work with a group of special needs kids. And so this movie, this past weekend, Woody's manager called me up, and there was a story, and it was on the Today Show and People Magazine. And in this story, they were talking about how this young man, in outside of St. Louis, his mom put an ad on Facebook. He had Down syndrome. He was 21 years old, and he couldn't get friends. And she put an ad to get friends for her son so he could play video games, and said she was going to pay these people.
Right.
Well, Jeremy saw this story, was very, very touched by it. And we arranged a screening for him and all of the new friends that he has to go see the theater. And Woody Harrelson filmed a special piece for him. They showed it before the movie. And we got a note from his mom. And this note, I was just in tears reading this note. That's doing those things. It's like just everyday things that you sometimes don't think they mean so much to other people. Kindness, it goes far. So that's something that.
Oh, I love that. Oh my God, you're awesome. Let's go for a little Oscar dish. Do you guys have Tar? Let's go there. What did you think about the Oscars this year?
I thought the Oscars, I thought the show itself was a lot better than last year, obviously, because last year it was kind of scary. I think that the Oscars are moving in a different direction, and I think that, like a lot of organizations, they're trying so hard to be one thing that they're sort of losing sight of some of the things that are going on in, like that are important, that were about the Oscars. I never think it's great when one film or another, like you basically had two films who dominated the Oscars this year. I don't think that's great for the industry. I think both of those films are very worthy, and I think they both should have won. But I think when you have films win too much, I think that can be discouraging to a lot of other people, because there were a lot of films, including my own, but I'm not even just speaking of my own, because there were others that I thought were very worthy that were just shut out. And I don't think that's a good thing. And I don't think that's something that should be looked upon as the new norm. And I also think that they let a lot of younger members into the Academy. They kind of took the guidelines down and the rules, and they wanted to bring younger people in, which I think is great. But I do think that they did it without really going into sort of the responsibilities that go into Oscars. And so I was sitting with a group of young women who were in the Academy, and I listened to their conversation about, they were very angry that there were no women directors who were nominated this year, which is a valid point. But I kept waiting for them to talk about, who they thought should get nominated. Because if you're going to have that opinion, say the movie that you want to. They never said it. And then when they did the nominations and they talked about each of the individual films, these young women who were sitting there all said, "What's Women Talking? I didn't see that movie." And I'm like, all right, well, that's Sarah Polley's movie. She's a director who probably should have been nominated, but wasn't. And if you haven't seen her movie and you're complaining about women directors, then you're part of the problem, unfortunately, because it's like you if you really are saying those things, it's troubling to me that people came up to me and felt the need to say to me that they felt like Michelle Yeoh should win for Best Actress, yet they never watched Tar. And that's a problem for me. It's like you can have that opinion, and I'm glad Michelle won. She's very worthy, but you should watch the other people. And I think that when you don't educate, and I think that's a problem with the Academy. The Academy should be educating its members that you have a responsibility if you're in the Academy to watch every, because I can't
Like
believe
being a juror, right? You're told as a juror what your responsibilities are. It should be the same.
exactly. And I think it's like, it's just not fair that you're just going to like go, well, that's popular on social media. That's the right thing to do. Or that's the, it's like, that's not cool. At least give the other people. I'm not saying you would have changed your mind, but when I hear that people didn't see half of the best movie contenders, and that's sad because people, one thing I've learned from working with directors and people who make film and lucky enough to be around them is like their movies are like their children. And it's like when you don't pay attention to them, it's just like if you had a teacher in school who just gave all the awards to one kid and didn't pay attention to what the rest of the kids did. It's like, I think that each of these people deserve to have their movies watched and really judged objectively based on what the content is, and I feel like we lost a little bit of that. And I think that's a problem. And I hope that that's something that we can correct going forward. And it's part of, I am part of the Academy. I'm part of one of the committees. And it's like, it's something that we need to educate better.
And so let's go on this too. So one of the things that we advocate for, obviously, is to get films in theatrical releases. And I did notice a lot of thank you to Ted from Netflix. And I was struggling with it. I kind of had a little bit of a mixed emotion about that. And what is your position on making sure that these films have an appropriate theatrical release in order to be an Oscar contender?
I think something that everybody's looking at very closely, because I think people feel like during COVID, a lot of the rules sort of changed, and they had to be COVID, right?
Understood. Yep.
So you saw a movie like Coda, which really was not really in theaters but nobody was really in theaters at that point. I think that Ted Sarandos has made it pretty clear that he feels like where his movies should be on his service, and that's the most important thing.
I've heard it. Yeah.
But I do think that they're making an effort to really try to get their films into theaters. And I do think that that's something that's going to continue down the line. I don't think it's ever going to be there right now anyway, be their number one way of doing, of that. But I do think that they're making efforts to get it into theaters more. And certainly on the Academy side, we are offered all screenings in theater for Netflix all of the time. So they're making themselves available to people to go see in theater. So I do think that they're trying to move in the right direction. I think it's slower than people want it to be, but I do think that they are trying to do it. And I do think that they do great work over at Netflix. I think that they serve a purpose of really bringing some great filmmakers back on screen again.
Okay, so now let's get down to some of the favorite ways for you to see a movie. Are you a big screen girl? Are you a comfy seat girl? How do you like to see your movies? I'm
a big screen girl. If it was up to me, I wish the Ziegfeld was still open in New York. I love to go see movies in big theaters, and my husband's the same way. So I like to go to the Bruin. I go to I like to go to the Village in Westwood. I like to see movies on a really big screen. I like to the Chinese. If I could go see a Marvel movie, I'm going to go to see it at the Chinese. I'm going to go.
I love it.
Yeah, I love the big screen experience. My favorite screen probably is the IMAX, Lincoln Square IMAX, because it's a real IMAX, and that's like one of my favorite places to go to see a movie. And if not, I have to say, I do enjoy the dine-in experiences in any of the theaters.
Awesome.
I do like the experiences. I like the comfort, and I'm a big fan of Dolby Cinema overall.
Awesome.
I think Dolby Cinema is, for me, Dolby is like, it's just a personal preference. I love the presentation and the sound for Dolby. And so anytime I can see anything in Dolby, I'll go there first. That's my experience.
I love that. And do you have a favorite experience? If you're going to go watch a movie, are you going to see horror? Are you going to see a rom-com? Are you going to see action? What's your genre that you will most be wanting to attend?
I think because a lot of the movies that I work on are movies that are more quality driven and drama driven. And, I love to go see a comedy, and I will go see comedies and I don't think there's enough comedies. I love a good, and I would still go back now. Like, when they show, when Blazing Saddles is at the New Bev, or Bridesmaids, or, I will go see those movies because I just like to laugh. I think that's something that we're seeing is me. I think that the world is difficult, and I think people want to laugh. People want to feel relief. And when I go to the movies, that's what I will go see. Although the last thing that I bought tickets for is my son. When my son was very young, I introduced him to Lord of the Rings at a very young age, because all the Lord of the Rings series a lot to me. I read all the books, and I'm a sort of a Lord of the Rings geek. So my son and I are going on April 13th to see the special Return of the King that's going into theaters in the extended version, so that we can see that. And it's like 4.5 hours or something. But he and I are going to go do that together. That's a Miles and Mom do. So
there you go.
Those are the kinds of special things I like to do.
The movie Game Night that with
Yeah.
Jason Bateman, I laughed so hard I had to go back and watch it again the second time because we missed so much of it. We were crying, we were laughing so hard. And I love that feeling with people like there was some woman behind me that was screeching, and we were laughing at her screeching, that we just were laughing at her. And I was like, that was such a great, like they say, that shared experience that just tickled me to pieces. And I love more movies like that.
We need more of them. It's like that was sort of like the Something About Mary's and the Dumb and Dumber. Yes. Those movies, you had to see them in theaters, and people were laughing so loud that you would go back and watch them again just so you could hear the lines. We all need that. We need those big belly laughs.
At CinemaCon, when they did the screening for We're the Millers,
Yeah.
so I was in the back of the trade show booth. I was exhibiting with the company I used to work for, and the gentleman walked by, right? And he stops, he backs up, he goes, "Were you at the screening for We're the Millers?" Because I recognize that laugh.
Yeah, I know that. I get that too. It's like it's rare that you watch movies that get you the big belly laugh, but when you do, you appreciate it. And I think we all could use some more laughter.
Okay, so I've got one more question, and then I'm going to open it up to the audience so we can get around the room and let as many say hi. So, favorite snack? Are we popcorn? Are we candy? Are we both? And what do you drink?
I am a water, just because.
Okay, no sodas. Okay.
And I take my Junior Mints and put them into popcorn and eat them
go.
together. That's my thing. I love, and I could eat that for a really, really long time. And for many times as a film buyer, that would be my lunch or dinner. So I'm very, very accustomed.
Oh, there's one thing I forgot to ask you that I wanted to get to. You talked to me a little bit about going on the film festival journey, and I want to hear a little bit about that before I open it to the audience, because this is a beautiful part of your job. So tell us about your favorite festival, and do you have any, like, one of those stories that you can just tell us of an experience at a film festival?
I think, well, first of all, my favorite festival is Toronto, because Toronto has most films. And I think that, I don't want to say the most quality films, because you're looking at movies for the award season. And I think that Toronto is just run to me for people who are movie lovers, because there's so much content, and the quality of the presentations and everything that they do. I think Toronto is the best. Sundance is fun, and I get a big kick out of it. And Cannes is literally the most beautiful film festival you could possibly go to. Telluride is great too, but Toronto is fun, and it is a really cool part of my job. And I think I will give you a story from this year, because since I'm part of the Universal family, which I appreciate very much, I was invited to a party after the premiere of Fabelmans. And, it's like, it was amazing, because it's like, here you are, you're with Michelle Williams and Paul Dano and Judd Hirsch, who I grew up watching on Taxi, and Steven Spielberg, and it was amazing. But we went to this party, and we got there early, and I'm standing there and I'm talking to, like, our production person, and we're talking, and Donna Langley was there. And all of a sudden I had somebody go, and I'm standing in front of the chocolate chip cookies, because I love cookies. So I'm basically standing over them, like, I want these cookies here for me. So I'm here eating a cookie, and I get somebody behind me, and they're like, "Excuse me, could you give me a cookie?" And it's Steven Spielberg.
Oh, wow.
Of course, you can have whatever you want.
Yes, Mr. Spielberg. I love it.
That was very cool. He's a very nice man. Extremely, extremely nice man. And like somebody who I grew up with and meant so much to me, that Like when you meet somebody like that, you get so goofy that you just don't know what to say, because it's just like, oh my God, what do I ask him? Like everything runs through your head, you know. But he was extremely nice, and he spoke to me about The Fabelmans, which I love that movie. It was very personal to him, and I thought it was beautiful, and it was just I was honored to be able to be there with him. So that was pretty cool.
All right. Well, Lisa, I love that you shared so much with us. I love you told us about your background. Love what you're doing for Focus. Now I'm going to start opening up to the room. I'm just going to call on y'all, so be prepared. Thomas McCullough, what would you like to say to Lisa? Unmute yourself, sweetheart. Can you?
No.
There you
All
go.
right.
All
I was
right.
just thinking about that. It's wow. It sounds like you have a lot of fun in your work.
I do. I try to have fun. I mean, I think that you have to look at it like you're working in the movie industry with some of the coolest people in the world. And what, you know, I feel very, very lucky to be able to work to get to this point. So I try to have fun with it as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, who's that? Thank you, Thomas. Melissa Boudreau, would you like to say hello to Lisa?
Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. What an inspiration. So grateful. I have a couple questions, but I will only ask one so other people have time. But just advice for women in the industry. Obviously, we're women in exhibition, and sometimes it's a little challenging, I think, well, at least for me personally, to like stand up for myself when I'm in a room of like, you know, male executives, sorry to the men on the call, or just any advice or tricks or tips you've learned over the years being in this, you know, executive role.
I be yourself, because number one, anytime that you're real and you're blunt and you're yourself, it's better. Don't say what you think they want you to say what you really feel. And don't be shy about saying it. Your voice is just as loud and just as important as theirs is. And you know, sometimes, and believe me, it still happens to me sometimes. It actually happened to me yesterday. It's like sometimes you have to wait, but always make sure that you get your voice heard. And they will hear it eventually, and they will respect it, and have confidence in your work and who you are, because in the end, that will show through. And you will get to that next level. You will get to where you want to go. It just takes a little time, but it's hard sometimes. You have to almost like psych yourself up to sort of go, oh my God, I'm going to go into this meeting. But you know, it takes a while. But for me, it's hard with women and men for me, because I'm very shy overall. So it just takes some time. And sometimes I actually will practice what I'm going to say in the mirror before I say it. It helps.
It's super helpful. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Guillermo Younger, this is the first time to have you on. Would you like to say hello to Lisa?
Sure. Thank you, Lisa. Very, very great story. I love your story.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, and I had a question. You've been involved in two phases and two facets of the industry. You've been on the exhibition side, and you've also been on the distribution side, and you know, working with a studio right now. So that's one question. What do you prefer? And the other question is, tell us a little bit about your challenges, because you work for an independent studio and you have the majors and all that stuff. Any challenges? You know, can you tell us a little bit about how that work, how that work evolves for you?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
First of all, exhibition and distribution. I like them. I like them both for different reasons. And I do miss being a film buyer. I do. I was a film buyer for most of my career. And I really, really enjoyed being a film buyer. But one of the things that I sort of got into when I was at Landmark was we worked with a lot of independent films. So I got to sort of work both sides of the fence when I was at Landmark, and I enjoyed it. And that's kind of how I got myself involved with Focus, because I started to work with filmmakers more directly and started to work to get their movies into theaters. So if it was up to me, I'd do both jobs, and I can't, but I would like to. If it's up to me, I would actually like, I really do that. But I love distribution, and I do get I get a lot out of working with filmmakers. It's very, very rewarding. And I do feel like it does a big service to get their movies properly on screen and out to the world. So that's a really good thing. At Focus, we're lucky enough. Our parent company is Universal. So my big boss is Donna Langley.
Okay.
Donna is literally one of the biggest advocates for art and specialty film, along with, believe it or not, Jeff Shell and Brian Roberts, so we are lucky enough that we are we're an independent studio, but we've got a very big safety net because of our Universal background. We operate as a separate company, but they are there to assist us. So it helps out, tremendously. And it also gives us access to the lot and many other things that help us out. But I do believe that it's really important to continue to make independent film. And I do think that we're starting to see that there are, I think we're going to have to change some of the things that we're doing, but I do think there's still life in independent film. And we have 12 films on the slate this year and another 12 for next year. So I think that's good news,
Exhibitor saying, thank you. Okay, thank you, Guillermo. So glad you came. And now I've got to go to our favorite Italian. Alice, would you like to say hello to Lisa?
Yes, hi. Hello from Italy. Hi. Nice to meet you, Lisa. And my question is if you have a non-American favorite movie.
Oh, a non-American.
A non-American. Maybe Italian one?
Yeah, probably Cinema Paradiso.
Oh, yes.
Yes, that's probably
yes, that's lovely, lovely. Very nice choice.
I'm a huge Pedro Almodovar fan also. So I love Talk to Me, and there's some great films. But I love watching overall non-American films, and it's like we copy a lot of those here in America. Yeah. Not always well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And of course, I love in the chat, yay for 12 films. Thanks, Liz. Okay, I'm gonna get peppered up with some more. There's a gentleman by the name of LM. I don't know you.
Hello.
Oh, LM. Well, see now, LM. I know.
This is a little different because Lisa's my direct boss.
Well, how about that? Say something really good.
I can honestly say that what you see and what you get is her. She is so true, so real, has such a passion, just not for film. She's also one of my close friends.
Love it.
See where I'm at.
Thank you for joining us today. Did she say anything that surprised you, or was she?
Nope. I literally, no, she's real. She's just so real. She speaks from the heart, as you can all tell.
I mean, honestly, that one, when I saw her speak at this show East, yeah, I cried. Listen to that. Okay, so thank you. It was nice to meet you. I'm going to hop up to Gianni. Usually you've got a good question.
Well, mine was kind of in line with Melissa Boudreaux's, and just, being a woman in the industry, and just, standing up for yourself and being there and being a voice that's heard. So I think your response to that was really good. And one thing, Melissa, I would like to share with you that is something I kind of tell myself is I'm in this room for a reason. And I, in certain positions that I've been in, just reminding myself that I was hired for a reason, or I am in this position for a reason. And that's just kind of my trick. So thank you, Lisa, for sharing that earlier.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I agree with you that you are there for a reason. And it's also, I get very sort of spiritual and go into karma. You know what I mean? It's like, I really believe in that. And I believe that when you work hard, and, sometimes it's just the simple things. It's like when you work hard and you just do the next right thing, good things will happen. And I really believe that inside. And when I, if I ever feel down about myself after being in a certain meeting or I always will sort of pick myself up by thinking about the things that I've done that I'm proud of, because there's so many of them. And every day is a new day.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for being such an inspiration to women in the industry.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Gianni. Okay, I'm going to hop over to Jesse.
The unmuting part, it gets me. So sorry. Just thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I'm hearing your story and how real you are, and hearing your staff also say that is just I got the same impression when I got to hear you talk at CinemaCon last year. And I was like, okay, I see you. I'm looking up at you, and I'm just really excited to have somebody to look up to know that that we can be those roles. You know, you can be whatever you want to be. And I think I also wanted to say thank you for mentioning the thing about the champion screening, because it is those little things that we do that just become a part of movie memories that really make it a difference in people's lives. So knowing that somebody like you cares about those things too is really cool to hear. My question is gonna be, what's your go-to pump up song? You're like, I'm in a bad mood. I need my good vibes. What is that song for you?
For me, it's Where the Streets Have No Name from U2. And you note that I know that like off the top of my head. Yeah, that's probably my favorite. That song for me is like the perfect song. And I use that to sort of get myself pumped up. And that's my favorite. And I just want to say, because you mentioned CinemaCon, which I appreciate. I give everybody at CinemaCon and my company a heart attack because I don't read their scripts. And they never know what the hell I'm going to say, but they usually know that in some way or another I'll cry. So that's always a problem. But I do want to say, because it's like, this is something to think about sometimes. Like when they'll give you these scripts and they want you to do these things and stuff. And I remember the first time I did, I got off the stage and Donna Langley was there and Jeff Shell was there. And my boss was there, and I got off the stage and I felt like I was in high school. I was like, oh, they're going to give me shit for not reading what I was supposed to read. And Donna Langley came up to me and she whispered in my ear, said, "That was beautiful. Thank you." And that gave me license to be able to say, well, I guess it's okay to sometimes be yourself. It's okay to just go up there, speak from the heart. So I'm very happy to hear that I touched you in anything that I've ever said at CinemaCon, because sometimes I wonder if people look at me like that's the unprofessional idiot who's going up there and mumbling about, so. So
never. Nope. Absolutely. You reached this little girl from Wisconsin. And yeah. I once I saw this come up, I said, oh yes, absolutely.
Oh, that's very
yay.
Sweet. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I'm going to call on Ann Sampson because I was with her last week, and she would probably like to say hi.
Hi, Lisa. I'm not going to go on camera because I'm not even wearing a bra, just that kind of day. So it's staying off. Everyone understands that. Maybe the men don't, but whatever. I've always just been a huge fan of yours. We've crossed paths many times, especially having worked for Steve on a couple of occasions on Variety and whatnot. I knew I should have had a question ready, but our paths are very, I'm not going to say exactly the same, but I started out in exhibition, went to distribution. I liked exhibition better, and I absolutely can say that 100%. So I've been like back and forth and all over since then. What's your favorite part about working at Focus? Like outside of the stuff that maybe we don't know in terms of looking at scripts or obviously working with filmmakers and whatnot, but the stuff that we might not have insight on that makes distribution so fun for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it is starting out with the green light stage. So we'll read things, we'll read screenplays. And I think Promising Young Woman is probably the one that in a lot of ways means the most to me, because Emerald Fennell gave us the script and we watched it in the beginning stages. And sometimes you get a script and then when you see the movie, you're like, just like doesn't look anything like what you thought it was going to look like. Well, she made a movie that to me was better than what the screenplay even was, and the screenplay was great. And so that was a movie that really touched me. But there's been others also, that like Black Klansman is another one. Sometimes when movies really get your heart, and then you get to work with the filmmakers. Emerald was one of them. I got to work with Spike Lee, which was fantastic. I got to work with Kenneth Branagh, who's probably the nicest man on the face of the earth. Morgan Neville, who did Won't You Be My Neighbor and Roadrunner, and we're doing another title with him. Edgar Wright, Paul Thomas Anderson. These people are wonderful to work with, and I think that The other thing that I remember all the time, and we just worked with Todd Field, and Todd is an interesting character, and Todd is one of these people who he's just, people like, they go, oh, well, he's hard to deal with, and he can be, but he really, the one thing you find out about filmmakers is they're just like us. They're insecure. They're not always sure. They're shy. And so I just try to treat them like I would want to be treated. And I wind up having some really good relationships, and people will come back to me and ask that. When Paul Thomas Anderson came back to me last year and asked me a bunch of questions about theatrical, and it was great. It's like, I'm glad that he feels like he can do that with me. So those relationships that I've made, I'm really, really proud of. It's exciting.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I just want to say how much I love you. Like, I have a big girl crush on you, and I think you're just an incredible inspiration to all of us women in the industry, because you have been so true to yourself. And I feel like a lot of times we have to like bend and mold to certain standards, and it's just great to see that you've been real and you've been successful, and we are all just so appreciative that you're on here today and speaking your truth, and just love that.
Oh, thank you. It means a lot.
A lot of yeses down there in the chat. Yay.
That's very
okay. We got a few more minutes. I'm going to hop around as many as we can. Tess, would you like to say hello?
Hi, Lisa. Thanks so much for being here. My sister is graduating from college, and she's quite anxious about, going off into the real world, going from the expert at school to, knowing nothing about the workplace. And if it's all right with you, I'd love to share your story. I think she'd find it very inspiring, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Always happy to talk to you. It's one of the things at Focus that we're trying to do, and we kind of got stopped at COVID, but one of the things that we wanted to do at Focus was start educating as early as high school, even just jobs that you could get in the film industry, because I don't think that people, especially women, understand that there's a lot of things that you can do in the movie industry that doesn't have to do with just being an actor or an actress, or, there's so many jobs, these jobs within our industry, even my job, and the path to my job. I don't think that young people understand enough about the inner workings of it. So there's a lot of things, there's a lot of opportunities for talented people. So yeah.
And you said that, Lisa, something WIE members, I think we should do a WIE job fair. Just throwing it out there, Laura Peralta Jones.
Yeah, I think something that's important, and I do think that, one of the things that we talked about doing, and like I said, we kind of got stopped with COVID, was even doing some type of a reel with filmmakers, female filmmakers, diverse filmmakers, all of our filmmakers, and just having them talk about the different things that they look for on the set, things that they need, things that they want, because there's a lot more than just being that star on screen. And I know there's always pressure to be that centerpiece on the screen, but there's so many things around it. And we've gotten so many people in our office have gone on to other things, whether it's directing or writing, whatever, just starting in the industry at one of our jobs as an intern, so it's important, it's really important. Education's important.
Hey, thank you. Okay, let's see. Carol Malik, would you like to say hi?
Sure. Hi. Sorry, I had to jump off for a little bit there. Lisa, yes, you're fabulous. Hearing your story, it's amazing. There's so many things that I think it was like, yep, that was me a little younger. That was me a little younger. So I think it's fabulous that you are so open about all of that. If I have one question, it would probably be, as a little girl, and you're at home and you're watching movies and different things like that, when you got into Hollywood and you're dealing with that, who was your starstruck moment? Which actor was it that, and everybody always has one of those ones where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm right there. Who was yours?
I am a sports geek. And so when I went to the Oscars, and this was a few years ago, Kobe Bryant had a short that won, and Kobe Bryant was there standing in front of me. And I geeked out over Kobe Bryant. I have to say, I couldn't speak. I was just like, wow. So I am, that was like my big geek moment. And I also have to say that we started on Tar, and Kate came on. In fact, the movie wouldn't have been made if Kate Blanchett hadn't come on. When we got on a call and Kate Blanchett was just like you on my call talking to me, I don't know how I held it together, because she's so well spoken and she's so smart, and she's just like, but I'm like, and her name just came up. It was just like Kate, she was just like, it's just like, oh my God, I'm speaking to one of the greatest actresses probably ever. And she's asking me about my release plan. And I just was like freaked out. So it still comes up.
Thank you. Good questions. Okay, let's move on. Mary, would you like to say hello?
Hey, Lisa, it's nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
So first I want to say thank you for sharing your story. It's very inspiring to hear that you beat to your own drum, and it makes me feel good to hear stuff like that within our industry. I feel like I'm very blunt and outspoken, and so it makes me feel good to hear that there's somebody I can look up to in our industry that is the same. My question actually is a little more fun. If a movie was written about your life, who would you want to play you and why?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I've never thought about that ever. That's really interesting.
You can always think about it and come back to it later.
About that. No, I don't. That would be really interesting because it would have to be, because I just said it. I would be honored if Kate Blanchett would play me because she's like
awesome.
And I will say this about Kate. Kate is, she's unbelievably blunt. She's unbelievably profane, and she can hold herself with anybody in the room. So like, I would say that if that would probably be the biggest honor I would ever have.
I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
Wonderful to meet you.
Okay. Patricia Martin.
Hi, Lisa. It's really wonderful to meet you. You seem like such a lovely lady, and what a wonderful story and your history. And it's true that you are clearly someone who understands that you could be anything in the world. You might as well just be yourself, right? So
I only got one life, but Mom used to say it's not a dress rehearsal. So there you go.
So I have a fun question for you. How long should a movie really be? Because I'm trying to bring back the intermission. Like, every 4-hour movie, maybe there's a time to go back to the concession stand. Like, what do you think is the ideal length of a movie?
Well, it's funny. I just had this conversation with my son because my son thinks there should be intermissions in movies so that you can get up, go to the bathroom, and get food. And so we were just talking about this, and it's like, I do think that if you have a movie over 3 hours, that you should have some type of an intermission. And as you know, Quentin Tarantino did this in The Hateful Eight. And I actually thought it was effective, but I will tell you that exhibitors freak out about that because it's too long and it's too, so like from an exhibition standpoint, if you have a movie that's under 2 hours is the best, because obviously you can get the most show times in and you get the maximum bang for your buck as far as seating goes and everything else. But yeah, we try to keep our filmmakers on the 120 or less if possible, just because from a theatrical level, it makes the most sense. On Blu-ray, you can do whatever you want. Like I said, I'm going to see the 4.5-hour version of Return of the King, and I look forward to that, but there's only certain movies that you can get away with that with.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank
Lovely
you.
to meet you.
Just a couple more folks here. Laura, are you available? Laura Peralta Jones?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Okay, here we go.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
There she is.
So I'm rather spoiled with Lisa because I get to work with her a lot at CinemaCon. I've worked with her in other shows, Show East recently. And I always have to follow her lead. She is so right on with, I just kind of do my own thing. She has no idea what we're doing at the risers, and keeping her in the spotlight is always very fun, Lisa. But I think what I would like to ask you, and it's my defining moment, what would you like to see at CinemaCon specifically that could change a little bit or bring a little something more to the show outside of the normal formats in your particular position?
That's a great question, because I do think that there are things that we could do. I think it would be interesting if we could get more people like, I mean, not that she would do it, but to be able to have somebody like Donna Langley or Chris Aronson, to be able to sort of have more access to be able to ask them questions, because I do think that there's a lot of misinformation that goes on, whether it's about, there's so many different subjects as far as distribution goes, but I think that for exhibitors, they have a lot of questions. And I don't think that they sometimes are able to get the answers they want to get from people who are actually sort of making those movies. And so I wish there was a sort of a forum where we could speak more directly to people than we are able to do, because we can't really do that when we're on stage. You know, we can't really address specific issues and problems and questions. But I wish there was a forum that we could have a little bit more give and take that I think would be informative to everybody. You know, it's hard to do.
I agree. I noticed that the format of the shows too, the Q&As are really more driven in the academia in Palace 3 when they're doing the panel sessions, but they don't do it in the bigger ballrooms where usually the higher execs like yourself will go on panels. I've worked with you many times in there, and I've suggested this, but there is a perfect example of how the powers that be, even if you're trying to get those messages through, you know, sometimes don't work. That's what we have to find the narratives to work. How do we do that? How do we, you know, emphasize that importance?
I'm glad you mentioned that, because Chris is our next speaker, Lisa. So I might do an e-blast to our members and say, do you have a question for Chris Aronson? And maybe set up our WE talk like that.
I love Chris. Chris has got a lot of good things to say, and he's extremely knowledgeable about the industry and very interesting. And he's a good example. I mean, he's a great ambassador for the industry, and we need more of those. So that's great that you got Chris coming.
Okay, so we are rounding up. Teresa English, are you available to talk today? She hops on. She's always got good questions. There she is.
Sorry, I'm on my phone, so things have been a little weird today. Sorry. I'm home, but getting ready for my niece's arrival. I'm really excited that my college age niece is deciding to spend her spring break with me. So, you know, I think, Lisa, thank you so much for your time. I think it was great to hear your story. And much like Tess said, you know, sharing the story with younger people and people coming into the industry and all the opportunities within it is so important. So thank you for being willing to share with us today.
Thank you. It's been great. I appreciate it. And I like to have these forums because I think it's good. I think it's good to be able to sort of, you know, as somebody who speaks a lot, it's always important to get great feedback, and you guys give great feedback. So it's really good for everybody. So always happy to answer questions. Always happy. Thank you.
Okay, so our last one is one of our favorite gentlemen who's with us almost everyone is Jim Cook. Jim, are you available to say hi to Lisa and round out our last question for her? He's kind of quiet, does not like him. Okay, who wants to be our last question for Lisa if Jim's not available? Anybody want to jump up and say hey?
Hey, I don't want to, I'm running around like crazy. I just had lunch with Elizabeth, Lisa, yesterday. So that was great. Wonderful. And I actually wanted to thank you so much for Best Buddies, because I spent the last few weeks working with Studio Movie Grill on bringing Best Buddies into Champions. And it was just fantastic. We invited them in. We do special needs screenings for free. And we invited them all in every chapter. And it was just phenomenal. And I also wanted to say how much I remember something you said. I posted it in the chat about how important movies are, that they're the one time that we come together and we share an experience. And I remember you saying that, how it made us realize how much we have in common. So thank you for that. I've loved getting to know you today, and hope we get to meet at CinemaCon next time.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And it's so true. It's like, that was always over at Focus. One of our mottos has always been that heroes are everyday people who do extraordinary things. Those are our superheroes. And, you know, whether it was Mr. Rogers or even somewhat Black Klansman, we've had so many movies that have touched people in different ways. And that's what makes it all worthwhile. I always feel like if somebody is, you know, even working with, I'm so glad you're working with Best Buddies and Champions. Been very, we're trying to support as much as we possibly can. That means more to me than anything else. You don't put that into dollars and cents. It really means a lot. We need more of it. We need more people to come together as human beings. It's the most important thing. And you know, even we talked about the Oscars a little bit before, and I was touched by Lady Gaga, who is unbelievable as far as performance anyway. But you know, when she spoke about heroes and she spoke about, you know, finding the heroes within ourselves, it's true. We all have it. We just have to sort of trust in it, and it's there. So,
but it's not just for them, it's everyday people. When we come together and watch a movie and have that same experience together, it's just, it makes us realize that we're not that different, that we all have so much in common. So thank you for that.
Thank you. So true. Thank you.
Man. Okay, we had one last person that raised their hand, Lisa, and it's Kim Cook-Serrano with Galaxy. Kim?
Hi, thank you so much for being here today and your honesty. Love hearing that you're true to yourself every day, because I know that's always hard for all of us to remember. We should be. I really liked your comment about the young ladies you were sitting next to at the Oscars who were saying there should be a woman without any backing behind that, any real reason, not to paraphrase for you, but it was like, let's just promote a woman for woman's sake. And I think that's a fear that those of us who are trying to be promoted for real reasons can happen and can actually sabotage our own efforts. What do you think your best advice to people is in that circumstance? How do you have that conversation with people and go, wait a minute, let's back up and make it a real situation rather than, you know, a quantitative one?
Yeah, no, and it's a great question, because you don't want to feel that way, right? Because that's not good for anybody, and it's also not good for whatever organization you're with. I think that I always feel, and for me, I always felt like, as I was sort of thinking that I should go to that next level, what I always presented my boss with was exactly the work that I had done in my accomplishments. Because in the end, it doesn't make any difference if you're green, yellow, blue, orange, whatever it is. If you're doing the work, then you should be promoted, and that's an important thing. And what I wanted to do, and I regrets it now, is I didn't know them, so I kind of knew them but didn't know them. I wanted to say to those young ladies, that's a really good point. There should be a woman. What movie do you think it should be? Because I think that in order for that sort of thinking to stop, you have to question it and actually, you know, challenge. And I think the fact that we don't challenge that sometimes makes it okay. So it's like, I think that we feel for ourselves that we just need to be able to show our real accomplishments and show what we do. And as long as we do that, then we belong in any room that we should be in. And when I was at Lowe's, I was literally the only woman film. I was the first sort of senior buyer that for as a woman that was, but it's everybody sort of forgot about it because we were all doing the same job. And that's like the biggest sort of compliment you can get is that when people forget and they just realize that you've made it because of who you are and what you're doing. It takes a while, it's hard, but it does happen. And I've seen it happen. And the people who get promoted and who make it up the ladder are those ones who really genuinely have worked hard to get to that point and probably worked harder than a lot of others. So it takes some time, but it's worth it.
All righty then. So you guys went a little bit past the time because of course Lisa's amazing and has about fantastic information to share with us. So without further ado, thank you so much for sharing your time with us on Women in Exhibition. And until we see you at CinemaCon, we'll probably all approach you and ask you for a hug or a picture.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's really, really wonderful. And what a great organization. So thank you for sort of, you educated me this morning because I am very impressed. That's great. That's fantastic. Yes.
I'll take this recording and I'll send it to everybody on the call. So everybody who has an opportunity to hear this again, and we'll put it up on LinkedIn and our social so people can get to know you even a little bit more and a little bit, wider reach. But it was great to meet you. So everybody, thanks for coming, and all you new people,
Thanks,
I'll be sending you the link.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.